Once you've made a decision to be a real estate investor and an entrepreneur, it's not easy, right? So you have to be willing to work hard.
You're not going to get rich tomorrow either, right? If you were to get rich doing real estate, you're going to get rich in 10 years. You're not going to get rich this first year, right? It's going to take time. You're going to make some mistakes, but be brazen. Go out and do shit. Go out and find a deal. Go out and raise the capital. And then you're going to have people that are going to be like, oh, you found a great deal. I'll wire you $1 million.
Jeff Murphy is a guy that I go to when I have questions about real estate. And we're going to have a conversation about what's going on in 2023 and how we are going to navigate this market. And so just a quick introduction of Jeff. Jeff is a seasoned professional real estate. He's got the Midas touch. Literally everything the guy touches turns to gold. And he is who I try to be or want to be when I grow up. So Jeff Murphy, man, thank you for coming and sitting down with us. And it's going to be a great time. We're going to spend about 45 minutes or an hour together.
Cool. Well, Robbie, I always enjoy our talks anyways, because it's just, if I have a problem or try to think things through, tax-wise, real estate, whatever it is, because we see the world the same, I always call you, and your, lateral thinking on it's amazing, because we're able to think things through and figure out what's the best solution. So this is kind of fun.
Jeff, tell me, what are your plans for, how are you investing in this upcoming, I would say we're going to go into, or we're already in a depression. And if we don't go into or are not in a depression, then we're going to have something called hyperinflation, which I have no idea what that will look like. But what's your strategy for 2023?
So I don't think we're in a depression. I mean, that seems severe on it. So we can certainly say we're in a recession, or we're near one anyways. But I try to break things down on a smaller level when we're looking. I remember all the time when I would talk to like guys that I looked up to, and they'd be worried about the political environment. And I would think, well, what does that have to do with me buying a $60,000 house in Florida or a $100,000 house in Florida? Because I knew I could just pay $60,000 for something, put 20 in it or 30 in it at the time, and sell it for 160 or 170. And I felt like people would worry about those things. I think actually now's probably, I could argue it's a better time when there's turmoil. It's a better time to be investing than when things are very efficient. Like very efficient markets, there's a seller and then buyers, and it's hard for real estate investors to get in the middle and make lots of money. When there's turmoil in the market, I feel like there's more opportunity because there's going to be somebody who's going to be panicked, where you're going to be able to pick up deals. If I was starting over right now, if I was to say the one thing that I would do, if I had very little money, I would be going out to every single wholesaler that's in Florida and be saying, I'm your guy. If you have deals fall apart, I can close on those deals at the right price. I'll take those deals, and I would be, sending out hundreds of emails per day to these guys, not just spamming them. I'm talking about personalized emails, follow-up calls, follow-up texts. I'm your guy. When you have a deal fall apart because they can't get lending or they can't get anything else, I'll take that deal down. Because I've contracted, we've been fairly slow in housing over the last couple of years because the market has been very efficient. And I picked up a couple of houses in the last month that I think are great deals, right? I'll make $75,000 to $100,000 on a $150,000 purchase.
Yeah. I mean, we're seeing that too. The property that I bought today, I own two in the same neighborhood. This is the most I've ever spent on a house in that neighborhood, but I still think I could put it back on the market right now and make 50 to 100 grand. And so I see it the same way. There are definitely more opportunities, and the opportunities are much larger when you have inefficiencies in the market. So people often ask, or I often hear from people that they're going to keep their money on the sidelines until the market corrects, and then they're going to go out and find all these wonderful deals. And my thought process on it, and I'm interested in yours, Jeff, is that I just want to always buy those wonderful deals. Like, I don't really care as long as I know the market's going up or going down. And if I can go to bed with a smile on my face because I'm happy to have bought it, then that's what I want to do. And I don't want to let, like you said, the macro market dictate what I do on the small level. Like, buying a house today in an area where I know that we can keep it, we can make it cash flow, and I've got equity. So
I think that's a good point. I agree. You should always be buying, always looking for deals. And that's the beauty of being a small business where you can pivot and chase something else, right? So you and I, you know this well, you and I were doing, 50 to 100 to a couple hundred houses a year from really 2012 through 2017 or 18. And then it got tighter, right? So you went to Puerto Rico and kind of changed what you were doing. I started doing more hard money lending and doing focusing on my rentals more. But in the last, in the last 2 years has been a very difficult market, in my opinion, to flip houses. So I wasn't doing 50 houses where we did really well on them, but I did three deals in the last 2 years, which we made a combined of $5 million on them. And 3 deals, right? I mean, now granted, those were more expensive deals. There was more that went into them. They weren't a simple buy a house, put in kitchen cabinets, paint the outside and sell it. It certainly was a little bit more complicated than that, but we crushed it on those deals and we really paid attention to those deals. So I think you may have to change what you're doing from time to time, but there's always an opportunity to go out and make money.
Yeah, and as a smart entrepreneur, you should always be changing what you're doing. We look back at this time of year and double down on the stuff that we were successful with last year generally. And there are some things that we did during the year that didn't work out so well, and we'll probably cast that aside and not go with that. And then we also like to have a direction moving into the next, especially if it's like this, where you're in a year where there's very likely a significant change from one year to the next. And that's where I think we're at, whatever way we go. You said it really well earlier. There are going to be some people that are panicked right now. And I've said kind of jokingly or half-heartedly that this is the time for real estate investors to shine. We get to step up and help some people that are in a bad position and maybe get them out of foreclosure or maybe buy a property that they just can't deal with, and we take on their problems. And that's when it feels good to be a real estate investor, right? Like, so
it really does. Yeah.
We kind of have a bad reputation here in Puerto Rico as they would portray us as throwing the old women out on the streets and making everything a hotel, and you're just a bad gringo. And that's not really what our heart is about. So these deals that you did, these 3, were they value add deals, or did you just find a great deal and you didn't have to do anything to it at all and you made a bunch of money?
I think it was, it really wasn't even that much of a value add deal, but we did look at it differently. I'll take one in particular. So we bought there was a gentleman that was trying to develop this piece of property on a lake in Orlando. So he had a large lot, and then he owned a house and 2 duplexes next to it. So the idea that he had and everybody else had was they needed to tear down the house that was on the lake, tear down the 2 duplexes, and do like a 20-unit development. And that's what I thought too, right? I almost let the deal go and really would be kicking myself now if we didn't do it. But when I walked in, I was going to do the same thing, and I started running the numbers. I was like, gosh, these numbers suck. I was like, they don't work. It's not the kind of return I want to get for the amount of capital that I have to invest. So I stepped back, and I think this is something where you and I see the world the same, Robbie, is intuitively we're good at finding deals, right? We just, that there's a good deal there, but you have to figure out what to do with it, right? And I almost feel like that's something you have or you don't. Maybe you can be trained on it. But I feel like it's something that you just have it. So I kept looking at this deal, and finally I was like, what am I doing? I should just take this land, divide it into 3 lots, so I didn't have to put in a bunch of infrastructure. So I sold off the 3 lots. I got all my money back out of the entire deal, and then I own a house on the lake in Orlando, I think the best lake in Orlando, but that's argued. Some people would argue that, and then 2 duplexes that are off the lake. So we crushed it, and we also did it in we structured it so our tax burden would be very little off of that deal on the way we structured it too. So
I actually remember talking to you about this deal and that structure,
yes.
Which is, one of those conversations that we say we had. You called up and said, hey, do you think that if I did this, then I could sell these off and take all of the basis out, and then I'd just be, you basically kept something at a very low basis, but you don't have any tax burden whatsoever on what you sold.
Yeah, very little.
About right?
So So we bought the lot into a single entity at a certain price. We bought the other properties in an entity at that price. So we're able to, again, very little tax burden. And we have this, we increased our net worth by a ton. I didn't actually get the cash because I ended up holding it because I didn't want to go pay all those taxes.
I think I saw a question in the chat where someone was asking, is it possible to invest like $30,000 a year? Is it possible to invest only making $30,000 a year? That's a great question. And that's from my friend Dylan, who used to help us out with the channel. And now he's running a gym. And so the answer, of course, is yes, it's possible. And I'll let you take a stab at this, Jeff, because I think you can coach him through this.
Okay, absolutely. I think to be a good real estate investor, there's really the two most important things that you need to be able to do. One is be able to find a deal, right? So you got to either go work for somebody to learn how to do it, read some books on it, but go find a deal. And then the second thing is, Robbie's good at it. I think I'm good at this too now. I've gotten better at it, is having access to capital to do the deals. So I don't care if you have an uncle that's going to put up the money for you. You go out and pitch people to raise money, whatever it may be. You can go do it that way. And you can also wholesale deals, right? If you can't come up with capital in the beginning, you can wholesale a few deals, get some experience, and then go raise money through investors. I think you're better off long-term if you have access to capital, so you can take those deals down and you can make bigger margins compared to just wholesaling a deal.
Dylan, you've got access to capital if you find a great deal. You've heard me say this in the past, that the money isn't the most important part of the transaction. Actually having the deal is always the most important part of being a real estate investor. And Jeff is right. You can become a wholesaler where you're just flipping contracts and it takes very, very little money to do that. Or you can go to family members and friends and your dentist. I mean, there are people that have some cash. Actually, I think this real estate cycle, more than any that I've ever been a part of, there is just a ton of capital in the market. So even though there's a correction maybe going on, I think that if you have a great deal, there is capital that you will be able to find when you present your great deal to someone who's got cash.
The one thing I want to add on that is getting access to the capital is just something, if you want to do this, don't dick around. I don't know if I can talk that way on this, but don't mess around. Don't be a sissy on it. It is part of the game. You have to get access to capital. If you want to go, do real estate deals, make really good money, you're going to have to get access to capital. Again, whether it's raising it and having them partners in the deal. I would go as far as, if you're doing your first deal, is go find the richest person and say, I'll put it in your corporate name, right? Let's do a handwritten agreement. Let's do a memo agreement. You're putting up all the money. I'll bring the deal. We can put it in your corporation name. If somebody ends up screwing you over and something goes wrong, you lost a little bit of your time, but normally it's going to go right. I can tell you, they're not going to do that. I've had really no experience with somebody treating me that way. And you're gonna instill trust in them, and then in time you can develop it where you're going to put it in land trust, or you can put it in your own entity, and they'll trust you. But I can tell you, I've had where I've called people up, and I know Robbie's done the same thing, is when you establish these relationships over time, you're not going to get rich tomorrow either, right? If you want to get rich doing real estate, you're going to get rich in 10 years. You're not going to get rich this first year, right? It's going to take time. You're going to make some mistakes, but be brazen. Go out and do shit. Go out and find a deal. Go out and raise the capital. And then you're going to have people that are going to be like, oh, you found a great deal. I'll wire you $1 million. Right? No agreement, no nothing else. They're just going to wire you $1 million because you've given them kick-ass returns already. Yeah. So be brazen, go out and do it. That's all I can really say on that one.
Jeff, I love that advice. It is something that I parrot. I've been saying that for years. The action of taking action and going and doing it is the most important thing about becoming a real estate investor. The money's definitely not the most important thing. It's the deal and the ability of someone to find a deal. I think you said it right at the start of our conversation, where you started to talk about how many offers you make on properties. And I think that someone starting out, or most people starting out, where they underestimate what it takes to find a deal. And it's looking at everything that you can possibly look at and training yourself to just start making offers on all of this stuff and making the offers at uncomfortable levels so that when you get someone who says yes and you call a Jeff Murphy or a Robert Krager, we're likely to say yes to you because we're going to see it as well. You want it to be pretty obvious that you've got a deal, and they're out there, guys. So if you're looking at 3 or 4 properties thinking that you're going to buy something and it's going to be the best deal since sliced bread, it's just not going to happen. I can tell you that honestly, I've made offers on and been denied on thousands and thousands of properties.
Millions. I mean, a lot.
It's a lot, right? Like I've done it so much, and I say this to people often. I've done it so much that I have a hard time not making offers to people just by walking through their house. Like when I'm walking through Jeff Murphy's house, I'm looking at the thing going, wow, I'd really like to buy this if I could just get it for this price, right? Like, so that my mind has just trained itself to always be thinking about what's a good price on this, what's the highest and best use for that. And that's what someone starting out is going to have to get to. And it's not going to come instantly, right? Like that's not,
it really isn't. Well, you're a deal junkie, so you probably do offer on everything. So that's true. But the other, I have a saying that I say, you've heard me say this hundreds, if not 1,000 times. The deal of a lifetime comes along once a week. And that is, you've heard me say it so many times. It really has 2 meanings in my mind. So the first meaning is there absolutely every week, there is a fantastic freaking deal that's out there. You may get it, somebody else may get it, but you're going to have to be out there looking at a lot of properties. And I think that's one of the things that sets you and I apart from all the other investors that kind of fell along the wayside, right? So many of them are out of the business, but is the pure quantity of deals that we look at, because the deal of a lifetime, I get those not once. I don't get them once a week, but I'm telling you, somebody does, and I get my fair share of them. You get your fair share of them. And then the other thing is, if you miss out on a deal, right? If you missed it, whatever, get over it. There's another one next week. Go find that frickin' deal. And it's out there. You can go get it next week, but you've got to make, again, you can't make 3 offers. You've got to make, I don't know. Again, if I was making offers on the MLS, or if I was going and communicating with wholesalers, I would want to be doing 50 to 100 touches per day, right? Whether if I'm just texting them saying, do you have anything that's coming up? Do you have anything that's falling apart? Call them up and talk to them. I'm your guy, right? And that's one of the ways I used to get deals all the time is I'm your guy. If you have a deal fall apart and you have a seller that needs to sell, call me. I'll close on it today, right? I won't be something I got to wait on. I can do my numbers in an hour and be closing on this today. Be prepared and you will get those kind of deals.
Yeah. I like to tell people along those same lines, when you have deals that no one else can close, right? Like, so there's something wrong with the title. There's some problem with one of the heirs to a trust, and they don't want to participate. So call me. I learned early on the money is made in the junk, in the stuff where it's really super difficult. And so, yeah, that's and you want to let everybody know. I start telling people whatever it is that I'm going to do well ahead of the time that I actually do it, right? Like this year, I for 2023, I plan to work out 156 times. I'm going to put it on a chart. And I started telling people a month ago, I haven't worked out a day in 25 years, guys. I'm going to work out 156 times next year. And everyone who's close to me knows that that's my plan. And I'm going to put it on YouTube, and I'm going to tell the world. And that forces me then, hopefully, to work out 156 times next year, which is 3 times a week, which shouldn't be that difficult. But anyways, by just speaking it into existence, it comes into existence. It starts to happen.
It's kind of funny. So I know everybody probably knows who Andrew Tate is these days. I rarely quote him, but he has something. He's like, I'm not motivated. I'm disciplined. And I'm not saying that I'm the most disciplined person in the world on everything, right? I don't make my bed. I don't wake up at 5 a.m. I don't, do journaling and all that stuff. But I am disciplined that I get up 3 days a week and work out. I do it no matter what, I get up and work out 3 days a week. I can tell you that I get up and I still look at the foreclosure sale, even though we don't buy that much in it, every single day. And I look at it. We make offers on properties, because that is where you're going to make your money. Everything else is kind of nonsense. It's bullshit, right? When you buy something and you buy it $1 million under value, you've done your job. Right, you've absolutely done your job right there,
Yep.
or 100,000. And I'm throwing those numbers around, but I've done it before, and I know you've done it because I've done it with you, where we bought a property, for 60 grand, never closed on it, and sold it for 150 grand without even closing on it, because we did it every day, and it was things that were messy, right? That people didn't understand the title. I love that, right? If it's a messy title and all messed up, or there's a condemned sign on the front of it, I'm like, that's my property, man. I want that thing.
Yeah, exactly. And we're selling that most of the time to other experienced real estate investors. So that really is the way that goes. You want to have your deal so ridiculously good that when you bring it to Jeff Murphy or Robbie Krager, that they're willing to buy it from you at something more than you paid for it. And when you're starting out, it may be a small number, but as you get a proven track record of success, the numbers grow. They get bigger and bigger and more fun and more fun. And like Jeff said, real estate isn't a get rich quick. I say real estate, you can get rich overnight, but what it requires is 12 hours a day, 6 days a week for 10 years. And some night overnight, you'll be rich.
Yes. And deals will happen, right? You will, again, find those it took a long time before those true deals of a lifetime came along, but it was doing those deals again, where, it was a great time in Florida where you could buy something for 50 or 60 grand, put 20 or 30 in it and sell it for 150, and then go do that 50 times in a year. Yeah. Right. That was the bread and butter deals. I know you did the same thing. Right. And it was such an engine that you can do, but I can't do that now. Right. That time is gone. You can't do that exact thing. So again, I did 3 deals that we crushed it on over the last couple of years. By the way, I did other deals too, right? We also built 20 houses in that time period and did well on them, but I made more in those 3 deals than I did in everything else that I work on, right? More than I did in hard money, more than we made in the rentals, more than we made in flipping those houses, because I was out there looking every single day. Yep. Right? And I stumbled upon those deals. I've done other deals like that in my life and have been lucky and smart, right? You need both.
Well, and you're a lender to other real estate investors, and you invite them to bring and share their deals with you and ask you to lend them money on it. And so just by doing that, by telling people that you've got money, you get access to deals that other people don't, right? Like
I'm surprised. So it's kind of weird. You and I talked about this because we talk about a lot of stuff. I was kind of questioning the decision. I've been doing hard money for 6 or 7 years now, where we've been lending out the money. And I was kind of questioning it because asset prices had gone up so much. Had I made a mistake, and I was questioning myself, had I made a mistake? Should I have been buying, income producing properties? Because I would have gotten the cash flow from the rentals, plus I would have gotten all that appreciation. Instead, I was lending on them, which was which I got good cash flow. I got better cash flow than I think than the people doing the deals did, but I didn't get that appreciation. But I do look at it as a lead source. So we probably have gotten, I'm going to say, of real estate deals that we've done because they started off as lending prospects, we've made a couple $1,000,000 since we've been doing it. So it's been a good lead source to bring us those kind of deals. So there are other benefits. You do want to be, one of the things that I talk a lot about you on, Robbie, is you always find a way to put yourself where there's money. So the lending kind of does that for me also. You put yourself in a place where there's deals happening, right? Where there's bargains to be had. It is one of your best talents. And anybody that wants to go into real estate investing, again, that's one of the things you got to figure out how you're going to do. How are you going to put yourself in a place where there's money being had? And you need to do that either by networking, making lots of offers, talking to lots of realtors, but you have to be in the business to get business, right? You got to be touching a lot of different people or have some sort of systematic approach, right? You may be just sending out lots of letters. You may be great at bidding in the foreclosure sales. You may be good at something else, but you will get a name and people will call you to do deals.
Yeah, I mean, I had to at one point move to Puerto Rico because I felt like that doing 65 deals in Orlando in 2016 just wasn't enough. And then 2017, it went down. And so by 2018, I'm like, I got to get out of here. There's not enough. And we had so much capital sitting up that was pent up, right, that we couldn't buy. Because in Florida at the time, 2018, your best case scenario really on a foreclosure flip, which is the hardest place to buy it, we're fighting for 20% if it all goes perfectly, right? And so I moved to Puerto Rico to find bigger margins, and so that I didn't have to look at thousands and thousands of deals to find the one great one. I could have just stayed where I was and just looked at more and worked harder, but instead I came to a place where I had much wider margins. And by making the move, I got to meet a whole new set of people that I'd never done business with before. And now I do a business in this hospitality space that I never even dreamt of. You know, when I came here 5 years ago, I came here to buy cheap houses. I came here to look for a 2012 market that Jeff just described, where you could buy something for 60 and sell it for 160 after a $20,000 renovation. And that's what I found. But I had to move, you know, a 3-hour plane ride away to get it. What are some of the things that you see as changing in the market next year? Because I have some ideas on this, and I think it would be important for the audience to hear. What ways of acquiring properties next year do you see as viable that maybe weren't viable for the last few years?
Let me say one thing that I think is not. Let me start there. So I don't think it's going to be the foreclosure sale. So I don't think that's still coming around. You know, people will talk about that the foreclosures have grown by 300%. Yeah, they went from, 6, to 18, right? It's not like it's, there's hundreds or thousands of them going through the foreclosures.
And in 2012, there were 40,000 a year, right?
Yeah,
like
it's
in
so
each
tiny.
county.
It's so tiny. Here's the things that I've seen that is really locked up. So banks are really tightening up on their lending, which is going to slow down the economy more. Hard money lenders. So there's a whole group of internet lenders that came in and they really shut down and are not lending on deals. So where there were a lot of investors that had access to capitals from these, I call them internet lenders, but private lenders online, right? Not non-banks. We're lending on lots of these deals. They've gone away for the most part and are not lending. So again, there are still deals that are going to come along, but I think you're going to have less competition chasing those deals. I would certainly be prepared that you want to be able to turn things quickly. So for the last, one of the great things, if you were even a bad flipper from 2000, we'll call it 2010 through 6 months ago, if you did a rehab really slow, sometimes it made you money, right? Because the property appreciated because you were bad at your job and it took you a year to do a 2-month rehab, but you still made more money because of the appreciation that occurred over that year. I don't think you have that luxury. So you can't be fumbling around with things. New investors can't fumble around with things the way they used to be able to. You've got to take something, get it done, and get it on the market, or wholesale. You can still wholesale. And there will be people out there trying to buy things because they're in Florida. There are still very much buyers for single family homes because they were priced out of the market, not even priced out of the market. They were outbid out of the market, right? Imagine you're a guy working, a couple that's making 120 grand a year. You're trying to buy a house. You're kind of stretching a little bit. And every house that you go to make an offer on, there's 16 offers, all cash, that can close, in 4 hours with no inspections. Those kind of buyers have left, right? You know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Those kind of buyers have left the market because either the funds have stopped buying, those were big funds that were buying them to rent them out, or the hard money or the investors that were getting hard money loans from the internet lenders aren't lending as easy. So you do have to find a way to get access to capital, and you have to be efficient in your flips. I like the flipping game right now because I believe your margins are going to improve over the next year, but you can't do it slow. You have to do it really, really fast.
So even though the market may be shifting or slowing down, your opinion is that you can still buy it right and sell it and do it fast enough that you don't get caught trying to catch the falling knife, right?
I think you can get better deals, right? If you're getting good deals, you can still do that.
Yeah.
Rents are still, and I'm talking really about Florida. So, right, I'm not out researching what Puerto Rico's market is or New York's, because there is definitely some difference in local markets. But so in Florida, there is such a demand, also because rents are really high. I mean, I've got a 1-bedroom, 1-bath in DeBerry with no washer and dryer in the unit. And I think we rented it for $1,400 a month. I mean, rents are just expensive. So when you start running the numbers, even with higher mortgage rates compared to rents, I think that people can get a better deal to go buy something and own it, and they'll get the appreciation over time. So, by the way, am I right on this? I'm right enough that I'm going to go do some. Do I think you should back up the truck and go buy 100 flips tomorrow? No. But should you take the risk and do a couple at a time? Maybe for me, do 5 or 6 at a time? Absolutely. Or maybe 10 at a time for me? Absolutely. And I think your risk is small enough and the margins have gotten better where you can actually do these deals.
Well, and we've so recently just been through a correction in the market, and it was a massive correction in the market. I don't think either of us are expecting a 2008, 2009 type correction. And if there is, Jeff, you won't be able to hold me back. I'll buy 1,000 freaking houses.
I mean, that's when we do want to buy. There's a little bit of me that's hoping for that. So
yeah, but I don't think either of us are expecting that kind of correction. So I think your point is well taken. Like, again, it's about taking action, guys, especially for you guys that are new to this. And you're trying to decide, do I wait for the perfect market or do I wait for the perfect deal? Buy the really good deals anytime you can find and get the really good deals. And there is a portion in the market that I think is going to come on next year that hasn't really been a thing, which is buying subject to. So people are going to get themselves in trouble on mortgages that had ridiculously low interest rates. And when they do, I believe that there's a play to go and take over someone's mortgage, and it doesn't require as much cash, and then get it rented out. So that's one avenue that I'm going to look to. I made an offer on a condo here today where I'm going to assume a $270,000 mortgage from. It's not assumable, but I'm going to take over paying the bank,
I get it. Yeah.
And I'm going to give the difference for their equity for the purchase, right? So it's a $400,000 purchase. They owe $270,000 to the bank. Now I've only got to come up with $130,000 for a condo that I can put some money into and then sell relatively quickly, hopefully for $600,000. So those kind of deals are going to be out there next year as well. And even if I was going to keep that place, like we could decide to live in that place for a while. Time cures everything in real estate. So even if you buy it a little bit too high, 5 years from now, in all likelihood, all of that will go away, right? So real estate never goes to zero. I think people drastically, and let's talk about this, Jeff. I think people drastically reduce or aren't putting enough in real estate for their portfolio. Like everybody says, let's be diversified, but I believe this is my kind of thought, is that 70% of most people's portfolio should be in real estate. 90% of millionaires make their money in real estate, and almost anyone who ever gets to be a millionaire keeps their wealth in real estate. So I don't understand why more people aren't putting more in real estate than what they do. This 401k stuff is great, IRAs are great, but my God, have a hefty amount of real estate. What are your thoughts?
Well, I have $0 in marketable securities, right? So I don't own any stocks. I've owned them before, but my returns were always lackluster. I also always felt like, do I really think the president of Disney or whoever, right? Pick a company. I'm not just picking on Disney. Do I really think they have my best interest at heart? And when I say my best interest, a shareholder at heart, I don't think they necessarily do, right? I mean, all the inside deals that they do, the stock options that they grant constantly that dilute the stock, I don't think that they have my best interest. And I've never come close. Even when I thought I was going to be smart and do different investments, I never came close to getting the kind of returns that I can get in real estate. So, yeah. I mean, obviously I'm in favor on this. And the beauty of leverage in real estate, right? This is something that I'm going to step back a few years and really think about this. So we bought in 11. I bought a 20 unit apartment complex in Deltona, right? Got a great deal. I paid $25,000 a door. So I bought that in 2011, paid 500 grand for it in a year, just over a year. I refinanced it for, I want to say 700 grand, maybe it was 750 grand, right? So I bought it for 500. We certainly had to fill it up. We had to kick out some of the bums that were in there. We had to raise the rents a little bit because it was being run poorly. But then I went and pulled out more money than I paid for it. It continued to cash flow. So what is my real return? When you talk about returns of what people get in stock markets or real estate or whatever, what is my real return in doing that, right? Because I got a really good deal when I bought it. Then I got more money out than I paid for it. So I went and invested that money, right? So I bought more rentals or more flips. I don't know exactly what I did with every dollar from that transaction. And I had extra cash and it still cash flowed. I mean, tell me any other vehicle where you can use that kind of leverage to get those kind of phenomenal returns. Because it's not like you can say I got 100% return. I got more than that, right? I had more. Yeah. I mean, I had all my money back and I still own it, right? Yeah. I still own that property now and it's kicking ass.
And rents have gone through the roof and you've pulled out the money, you've reinvested the money, plus you had that asset appreciate, plus all of the other things that you did along the way have had that marvelous thing called appreciation. I hear from people, because we're in the Bitcoin capital of the world, like, oh, I'm going to invest in Bitcoin. And to me, I have some money in these different coins and stuff, but that's not investing. That's play money. I have like less than 1% of the portfolio is in all of the different little Bitcoins of the world, right? Sure. So I got a bunch of them, and hopefully I make a whole bunch of money from it. But I know that over the next 10 years, everything that I have in real estate is going to 5x. Lots of the stuff that I buy is going to 10x. I mean, stuff that we bought from 2012 to now, 100x. You know, I mean, we were buying houses. I was cheap, right? At $2,000 or $3,000 a piece at tax deed sales all across the state of Florida, and now none of those are worth really less than like 300 grand. Yeah. What kind of return is that? I mean, and that's kind of absurd. Like, most people will never see that happen. I may never see that happen again in my lifetime, but even coming to Puerto Rico in 4.5 years, we did something that looks like a 5x from what we invested to the start if we sold everything, and some of it 10x. So that's,
well, where else do you get something where you're going to, like, if you're really worried about inflation, right? So we talked about that earlier. If you're worried about inflation, right, this is a good defensive investment against inflation, right? So you've got that. If you're flipping it, if I'm flipping or we're building new, my margins are awesome, right? So I'm getting somewhere north of 30% if it's a transactional deal for me. I'm usually getting less than that if I'm buying rentals now. I mean, rentals that I bought back in the day are just ridiculous kind of returns. But you also, so you can get things that are cash flow, but also you get to use leverage, right? I mean, I talk about it all the time. I preach to you about using more leverage because I think you're under leveraged. I'm under leveraged and I use more leverage than you do. So I preach to you all the time about you need to go borrow more money and use this, because that's one of the beauties of real estate, right? I mean, I didn't get it until I was a decade into investing of how powerful that is, right? And I'm not saying go leverage it and go buy an airplane. Just go leverage it and buy another property that's cash flowing. And then what is your returns then, right? I mean, it continues to grow so much faster. I always talk about, Dave Ramsey's an idiot, right? I don't believe in that guy at all. He'll be like, buy something for cash and do this. He says that because he's dealing with the group of America that's talking about financing TVs. And if he thinks he lets them put their foot in the door of leverage, that it's bad no matter what. Well, I don't think you should ever finance a TV, but I 100% believe if you go buy a house and you rent it out and you go take some leverage on it and you take that money and go buy another house and you're like, holy shit. I mean, look at these returns that I'm making. So investing in real estate, I don't know of anything that's better, right? But it's been really good to me, right? Because and that's from somebody who got kicked, you did too, got kicked in the face in 2007 and 8, right? I mean, went to zero, yeah, but had a skill set we were lucky in our timing, right? So what a great market we were in after that. And then also just have some balls to go and do more deals, right? We didn't sit on the sidelines. It took a little bit. It was a little scary getting started again, but then got back out there. I was like, wow. I mean, just awesome freaking deals.
Yeah, that's why I said earlier that if it goes back to a 2008 or 9 or 10 market, you can't hold me down. I'm buying everything. I mean, like, I've seen that movie. I know how it ends.
Yes.
And it's an amazing to be going into potentially a recession this quickly after that. If we have any kind of correction like they're calling for, some people are calling for, I just see it as a gift, right? Like, it's just, you've got to go out and buy. That will be the signal. And I'll let everybody on this channel know too, if that happens, that they should be buying everything. I literally will scream it from the rooftops. Hey, it's time to buy real estate. And that's the way I've felt about Puerto Rico for the last 4.5 or 5 years. And I have screamed it from the rooftops. So I can remember not too long ago. I mean, you tell me that I was under leverage. I think you called me up out of the blue and you said I was a sissy. You said, Robbie, I just wanted to call you and tell you you're a sissy. And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, you don't have any debt. You need to go. You need to stop being a little girl and go get some debt.
It's true. It's still true, Robbie. You still need to do it. Here's one other thing I wanted to do.
You're right.
Yes. One other thing that I wanted to, that I try to do also when you're doing investing is don't be afraid to change your mind on things, right? Some people will be like, this is what I'm doing and I've got to go do this. Well, I can tell you when COVID first started, Robbie and I had lots of talks, and mainly I was drinking when it happened. But we'd have lots of talk, and I was like, the world's ending, man. Nobody can go to work, and nobody's going to be able to earn money. Nobody's going to pay rent. Like, I've got all these houses. Who's going to buy a house, right? Nobody has a job. Like, I was like, I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't want to go broke twice in a decade, right? I mean, I just don't want that. And so, like, I really tightened up on things. Like, we executed really well and we sold some houses. And then I was like, I changed my trade. I actually reversed trade, right? And that's when I did some of these it was after that I did those 3 deals that I talked about where we crushed it on. And we found those, I think, because of COVID I was like, oh my gosh, we are going to make it through this, right? Because the government's response was massive, right? Of what they did to try to counteract it. So I was like, you know what, Jeff, you're wrong on this. It is not 2008. Not everybody's going broke. You need to go out and do things. So we went and did the deal on the lake. Shortly after that, we bought a shopping center. Not long after that, we bought a wedding venue. And we were doing lots of other deals, right? Those are just our 3 big deals we did really well on. But I reversed my trade and did a ton of business in early COVID and really did well on them. So don't be afraid to change your mind, right? And by the way, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And I usually give myself the big dummy award, right? So I'll earn that banner because I'll make a mistake, right? I'm saying, wow, you should be flipping houses because I think that's, and if the market changes next year and you shouldn't be flipping houses, you should be doing rentals or doing Airbnbs or doing something else, then I think you have to be able to say, hey, I need to change what I'm doing and go reverse course and do something else. Because you're a small business, right? You're not, if you were General Electric or General Motors, right? They're going to hire consultants and, do a study. And then in 10 years, they're going to, make a change poorly. We're small businesses. We call up Robbie or Robbie calls up Jeff and says, I'm thinking about doing Airbnb or I'm thinking about doing hard money or I'm thinking about this tax strategy or, whatever it may be, and make that decision and make that change. I mean, you have the ability to do that and do it on the fly.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I'm going to parrot everything you just said from here on out. In COVID, I was terrified too. And we did the opposite of what you did. We didn't sell we had some things that were on the market and I thought no one's going to buy a house. We need to get people rented so that we can have the cash flow to be able to eat. Right. And so we took like a dozen houses off of the market and threw renters in there, both in Florida and in Puerto Rico. And because I was wrong, I was freaking brilliant, right?
Yeah, you were. I wish I'd have done that.
Just doubled in value, right? The rents went absolutely wild and the appreciation was crazy. Things that I would have sold back in 2020, late 19, early 2020 at 100,000 are now 200,000, and rents that were, $1,000 are now damn near $2,000 a month. And I can't pat myself on the back for it, but I was taking action, right? Like I did have the conversation with you where I'm like, well, I'm not wanting to go broke either 2 times in a decade. And so I'm going to get all the cash flow that I can. And we got really lucky that we kind of made that shift. Otherwise, we would have sold some things and made some small profits, and we would have missed out on, I don't know, it's probably a couple $1 million worth of appreciation over those 10 or 15 houses that we took off of the market. What's your opinion on the economy of Puerto Rico in this recession? Wow, that's a difficult conversation, but one I think about a lot. I've even talked to Jeff about it. I believe that Puerto Rico has some insulation from whatever's going on in the States. Eventually, the saying is that if the U.S. sneezes, then Puerto Rico gets the flu. And while I still believe that over on the macro would be true, like on the long enough scale, whatever bad happens in the U.S. will eventually end up happening in Puerto Rico. I think that because we're 100 miles by 35 miles wide, and it's so much cash that has recently come and is still earmarked to come from 2 hurricanes, I don't see how you could slow down the economy. And when I go around Puerto Rico, I see no slowing down of the people are still going out to eat. People still have work. The malls are packed. It's Christmas time, and we love Christmas here in Puerto Rico. So while I think that if there's a sustained correction in the U.S., it will eventually get here, and it could get here quicker than I'm thinking, I believe we've got some insulation from a bad recession. So especially if you're not one of these guys who's buying $40 million houses in Dorado. If I was that guy who bought a $45 million house in Dorado, I would just have to think I can't sell that anytime soon because he's already had a big correction. But if you're going to live in a $120,000 to $150,000 home, they're not going to significantly devalue anytime soon. And we still have a real supply chain problem with houses on the market here in Puerto Rico. So I think that we're insulated. I feel really good. I'm very positive about Puerto Rico, and it's where I'm going to continue to invest. So
I think that I don't think real estate leads. In 2008, housing was certainly at the center of the recession. It's not normally the case, though. It doesn't have to be the case on this one. I don't think it is. Could there be some sort of correction on housing prices on the margin because there's an affordability aspect, right? Because rates have gone up. So it's your cost to own the house is more. Yes, that is certainly could happen. But I think that's on the margin. I don't feel like there's some massive correction. I don't feel like this is 2008. It's not I also feel like there is a massive shortage, at least in Florida, in housing availability. I mean, still people that I talk to, and the studies are out there of how many houses are listed, and you can look at the numbers, but also just people that I talk to personally, they're struggling finding rentals to live in or finding a place to buy. It's not the vice versa where there's like houses for sale everywhere. It's amazing how many houses for sale. That's not the case of what I see.
Yeah, it's definitely not the case here in Puerto Rico. We have a housing shortage, and it's very clear, right? Like there are way more people that are still looking for that starter home than there are starter homes to be had. And Puerto Rico just came out of a decade-long recession. So for those reasons, I think we've got some insulation. Hey, Robbie, since you're currently investing in PR a lot, you have knowledge from Florida too. Is it possible to have an LLC based in the States and buy property in Puerto Rico with it? Yes, Raphael, that's for sure possible. If you're going to do it on a significant level, I would advise setting up an LLC in Puerto Rico because it's not very difficult to have a Puerto Rico LLC, and there are some tax benefits to it, especially based on long-term rents. So we have other content on that, and happy to have you connect with me through email or whatever, and we can discuss it further. So, yeah.
So, Robbie, I wanted to talk about a couple of deals. One in particular that I did right before COVID, because we were talking about that. So the day they shut down the foreclosure sale the next day they shut it down in Florida, I bought a house in the foreclosure sale for $60,000. And it was hard to buy, even at that time period, to find houses for $60,000, right? But nobody was bidding. I was the one idiot that was out there buying the day before, because I still believe if there's a deal to be had, go and buy it. Even if you're unsure exactly of the outcome, but you have enough experience, or intuitively, you know that this is a deal. I knew this was a deal, right? At 60 grand. I didn't know when I would get access to the property because it was occupied, but it took us almost a year, right? And when I originally bought it, I thought, well, I'll probably sell this for like 160 or 70 grand. But it took me almost a year to get the lady out. And when we ended up doing it, I sold it for 280 grand. Right. So that kind of appreciation that you had, right? I got lucky on that one, right? So bought it and was kind of kicking myself after I bought it. But I was like, how do I pass up a deal? My wife was mad at me. I was like, it's 60 grand. I have to buy this house. I mean, there's no doubt that it doesn't matter. It's an absolute deal at some point, right? So I knew we'd end up renting it or flipping it. We ended up flipping it and crushing it. But that's one of the things that I talk to everybody about, that I try to do coaching with people, especially people that borrow from us or just other people I know in the industry, is if there's a deal to be had, go and get it. Anytime I see lots for sale or anything, that's something we did. I bought a bunch of lots because I could buy them for $10,000 a piece. Absolutely crushed it on those because again, it was an absolute deal. I didn't think I'd do anything with them right at that moment, but a couple of years later, we did build houses on them, or we sold the lots and did really well on them. So anybody that's out there looking to buy in Puerto Rico, because I know you still can find great deals there, be looking and buy things, right? I mean, go out and be active, take that plunge and go and do it.
Yeah, that's. I mean, we've kind of hit on that a few times on this talk, but one thing that you and I are both good at is that we take action often, right? Like we're always looking, we're always on the hunt, and we're always inviting. I would say me more than you maybe, but we invite partnerships. You and I have partnered on 50 or 60 deals, and that wasn't that common in Florida, but in Puerto Rico, it's become way more common for me to invite these one-off partnerships. And you sort of do it with the hard money lending, right? You use it as deal structure. Me, by inviting people to partner with me, I get people who hand me deals on a silver platter, and I just come in and partner with them, and it's worked out really, really well. So anyone in Puerto Rico that's wanting to do a deal and you're looking at stuff, offer less than you think that you should. And then if you want to partner, call me up. So
I think that's a real value that you're adding there, though. I mean, the idea, because a lot of people aren't comfortable with the raise. That's what I call it, right? Getting the capital. Yeah. They may be comfortable, they're a realtor or they happen to just know somebody who has a deal. But they may not be comfortable with going out and raising the capital. The idea that you're saying, hey, I'll bring that aspect. Don't worry about that. You worry about just getting an awesome deal. That's a big component to it. Yeah. My brothers I've got both of my brothers into real estate, one of them full time. And I did like his first, 10 deals we partnered on. I funded him. He did the work. And I did good, right? I made money on it. That's what I want to do. But more importantly, I got him to a place where he's extraordinarily successful, is out of the 9-to-5 grind, is able to, and now he just does deals. He's still pretty terrible at the raise. But he's borrowed some money against his house and houses a little bit. He needs to do better. I call him and tell him he's a sissy too. But you're offering a component that is such a valuable component that people should take you up on it.
And they do. I mean, and probably, oftentimes I get offered deals that aren't good and we don't end up partnering on. So I want to partner with people who have really exceptional deals.
Yes.
And have a like-minded and a good work ethic. I mean, I am pretty picky and choosy, but I tell everybody, hey, let's do a deal together if you can do it. And I present deals to people all the time when you talk about the raise, because as a real estate investor, you really can never have enough access to capital. You say that you get it through debt. And I have been hesitant to get debt because it burned me so badly last time. Right. But I've sort of shifted because of conversations we've had. We've borrowed more money. And then as soon as I started borrowing, of course, they raised the interest rate by twice the amount. But I still think it probably makes sense. And I'll probably need to start borrowing some money, at least in Puerto Rico. We've got millions of dollars worth of real estate and no debt at all on the island. We are significantly under leveraged here. In Florida, I maybe have 30% leverage. In Puerto Rico, we might have 2% leverage.
So Robbie, I called Robbie. This was several years ago. I call up Robbie and I go, I go, Robbie, I got a great idea. So let's go start bidding in the Seminole County foreclosure sale. And I was like, I'll put up the money. You'll go and you'll go and get the deals. So Robbie, like the first time he goes up, we get like one. So great. And it was a good deal, right? We did it. And then like it was either the second or third time, Robbie bought 7 freaking houses. I was like dying of a heart attack. I'm telling my wife that we have 7 houses we're going to do. And we did really well in all of them. I'm not complaining, but it was scary, right? You're like 7 houses and I think I bought like 1 in Orange County the same day. And it was just scary at that moment to do it. But, we took them down, we fixed them up or wholesaled them and sold them. And that's another thing that Robbie and I see. We talk about being like-minded on things. We started the conversation with that is what I like is we'll go and we go and get a deal on something, right? And you and I will both be, well, let's just list it. And then we'll list it and be like, holy shit, we just sold it and made 50 grand or 60 grand. It did nothing, right? We've owned it for 4 hours and we have a contract to sell it. And that's something I encourage people to do too. Don't think that you have to do a deal a certain way, right? You take down a house and you're going to go flip it. You're thinking I'm going to be, wow, I picked out the colors for the walls and I picked out what the kitchen cabinets are. Be willing to change your mind and go put it up for sale. If you sell it and you can make half the amount of money you could make by doing the whole flip, sell it.
Yeah,
sell it and go on to the next deal.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you definitely have. I don't know if I was telling you that and then you took it and ran with it, but you have taken that to the next level. Like you buy everything and immediately you have it on the market. Like you're buying a foreclosure and you're putting it on the MLS before you've even gone to the clerk of the court to pay for it. And I love it. I'm like, wow. So now I'm doing it. I bought this house today. We fully intend to keep it as a rental property. But like I told you earlier off this call, I was like, well, we might as well put it on the MLS and see what we can get. Right. So we'll see. Maybe someone will give us twice as much as we paid for it or 50 or 60,000 more than we paid for it. And we'll just have to sell it. So,
and you don't know, right? We've done it. We put them on the market and we're like, oh, well, I guess that didn't work. And then we fix them up and go sell them. Right. Yeah. But go try it. Right. You don't know. Don't be so arrogant that you think you know exactly what's going to happen. Right. Because I've had it all the time where I've thought I'm doing this and then I changed my mind. Right. So don't be arrogant, change your mind and go do whatever's right. Yeah. And that's where you and I, again, see the same and also make hard decisions. Sometimes you may have to say, I hate doing it and I haven't done it much, but be like, we got to reduce this down and take a loss. Right. I mean, it sucks. And again, I give myself the big dummy award and punch myself in the face. But what's worse than taking a loss now is taking the same loss 6 months from now or 3 months from now, hoping the market's going to get better. Some reason it's going to happen. Just accept that you made a mistake and just sell the property, take the loss. And usually I'm talking about $1,000 or $2,000 or whatever. And then go find another deal where you make all that up and more.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you and our experience was the times where we lost on things were when we would buy something we probably didn't research enough at the foreclosure sale. And after we won, we put 5% down, we realized what we've done. And we're like, oh, should we battle this out to try to maybe eke out a small profit, or should we just walk from 2 or 3 or 5 grand? And it's a hard decision to make, right? Like nobody likes to lose, but I think there's been a few times where the right play was to walk from deposits, and we were doing enough deals that we could absorb it or put it on to the next one. So yeah, that's a really great advice. Appreciate that. So what else do you want to say to the audience? Because I tell people this all the time. Like Jeff is the guy that I call when I have trouble with something going on in real estate, some kind of deal structure, some kind of funding. Maybe it's even courage sometimes. Like, and I think Jeff, you've done this too. Like, should I do this or shouldn't I do that? And then we talk it through. So your real estate mind is so valuable. So give us something else before we go that is another just beautiful nugget for the audience.
I feel like we've talked about a ton of things. You do have to, we've talked about, finding the deal, having the capital, but at the end of the day, you also have to execute, right? You can't put your head in the sand and ignore your projects that you have. You do have to go and complete them. So, and whatever it is, be bullheaded and get them done, right? And I'm not saying that that's what you have to be the best at, because I can tell you, Robbie's not the best rehabber I've ever met, right? He's one of the best real estate investors I've ever met, but he's not the best rehabber. I'm not either, right? But I am bullheaded, and Robbie is bullheaded, that we're going to be like, well, screw it. Let's get this done, right? Whatever it is, let's get the guys in there and get the work done, or let's go sell it and take the loss, even if we already own it. But you do have to execute at the end of the day. Having projects just sitting there where you have, and I've seen it on the hard money lending side a lot, where these guys will have projects just sitting for years, right? Don't do that, right? I mean, it's good for me. It's only good for the lender, by the way. But go finish your projects, get them on the market and get them sold. You do go execute. And if you're that bad at it, if you're the deal junkie, find somebody to do it, right? It's not that hard to find it's hard to find a good contractor, but it's not that hard to find somebody that can get the job done. You can do it and get it done, get it sold, and go find the next deal. Because I see people a lot, especially new investors, where they'll get overwhelmed. Like, I don't even know where to start. Well, start, get the job, get it finished, get it on the market, get it sold. And by the way, if you lose money, if you lose your investor money, right, you raise capital for it, go talk to them. Go to lunch with them and say, wow, I'm an idiot. I get the big dummy award. It cost you money. It costs probably us money, right? You're probably losing some money on this deal too. I hate this, apologize. And they'll take that, you're being, whether you're a man or a woman, but I'm going to say you're being a man and going in there and talking to them and saying, well, that sucked. And they go on, right? I've lost money on deals. I guarantee anybody who's putting up capital on this kind of investment has lost money on a deal before. But if you go and talk to them about it, they're going to be like, okay, let's go. And then bring them. I wouldn't even be afraid to bring them another deal, right? Because you did stand up and tell them that. So I guess that's my last kind of piece of advice, is you do have to execute at the end.
And I think that you're hitting on something without saying it, is that once you've made a decision to be a real estate investor and an entrepreneur, it's not easy, right? So you have to be willing to work hard. You make these tough choices, these hard decisions, and you have to just get the job done sometimes. I mean, really, the difference between success and not success is your ability to stick to it and keep pounding your head into the wall until you just flat out get it done. And I say that again and again. I like, at this point, I like 12-hour work days. I just enjoy it. And if I ever do something in life that gets me more time, then I usually will find another deal to do so that I, can spend my time and still work hard. This is what I want to do. And so don't be afraid to work hard. Don't be afraid to make the hard decisions and be bold with it. I think that's all good advice. Man, Jeff, I'm so grateful to have you and to just get to spend time and talk. I hope that this thing kind of goes viral for us, because I think you really were dropping dimes today, man.
Thank you, buddy. Robbie, I've enjoyed it. I think we're done. Am I signing off here?
Yeah, I think we can just say goodbye. We're done here. It's the end.
Awesome. Well, hey, man, you are awesome. I love you. Love your family. I talked to McKenna today, so it's been a lot of fun. So let's definitely do it again.
Thanks, Jeff. I really appreciate it. It was awesome. Great job.
See you, buddy.
All right.